super excited about our content today. We're doing office hours to be able to share this information across the region, of course, and hear about the cool things that people are doing around the region. And that today is definitely something we're doing, highlighting some of those great stories. We know that assistive technology and instructional technologies are some of those high leverage practices, which are the things that the Council for Exceptional Children indicate are some of those practices that when implemented have the greatest impact on student performance. So we want to make sure that we're using those to the extent possible. We always think through the SET framework, looking at the student, the environments, the tasks, and the tools to make sure that every student is getting exactly what it is they need in terms of equity. So today we're talking about positive collaboration experiences in assistive technology. And so we have multiple presenters here today. I will let them each, as they're speaking, go ahead and introduce themselves and tell their names and where they're from and their roles. I will be sliding through the slides. So for each of you, as you're presenting, just let me know when you're ready for me to click through the slides, but I will go ahead and mute myself and turn it over. Krista, are you going to get us kicked off?
Yeah, I can do that.
Great.
So today, I think we're going to start out by talking about a few of the different areas where we've seen success with AT collaboration, and these include social skills, in art classes, at home and between home and school, and across the school day, and also in our DAPE classes. And there's several different team members here who are work with a number of different students. So even if your name isn't on the slide, feel free to pop in if you have a comment or something that you felt worked really well as part of your team. So we'll go ahead and get started. I think the first one is Brooke's, and a few other team members that are here too.
Hi, sorry, my name is Brooke Pritchard. I'm a special education teacher. I do learning disabilities and VI for Duluth Edison Charter Schools. So the student that I want to talk about is a student who's a fifth grader, and he is a student who qualifies under the severely multiply impaired disability category. He communicates with let's see, it's a student who kind of communicates with very limited head and eye movements. And so over the course of the last several years, lots of team members, our speech language pathologist, our communication device specialist, our occupational therapist, his special ed teacher in his classroom, his PCA at home, and our DAPE teacher, we've all kind of been working together to really figure out, using his AAC device, how to help him really communicate what his wants and needs are. So when he came to us, he was really just able to tell us when he was unhappy with something by kind of crying and letting us know that he didn't like it. But now, over the course of several years, with all of us kind of working together and figuring out how he best communicates, we've been able to kind of move to having him be able to let us know what he wants to do, how he's interested, what kind of activities he wants to do, what games he wants to play, what stories he wants to read, how he can participate in DAPE class, and maybe what a couple other students he wants to play with. So some of my other team members are here. Anne, Rihanna, anything you want to add about this particular student?
I didn't know if you wanted me. I have my iPad here. I could kind of show some of the ways he's able to choose some of the activities that he does. So
yeah, that'd be great.
Something that he does with Brooke is gets to choose what Look to Learn game. Oh, I gotta turn off this effect. Look to Learn is a program. Sorry, 1 second, you guys. There we go. I think that'll help. Look to Learn is a program that where he works on his vision control. And so we give him the power to choose what game he wants to play. And then kind of a similar thing with our speech activities. We have books he can read. And then we also have recently started to play games with him. And this game is called Raccoon Rumpus. And he rolls a dice. And we're working on labeling what he got. So he rolled what color and then what article of clothing.
Brianna, how does he roll the dice?
So that's hand over hand with his PCA.
Okay. And then with the other ones, is he using eye gaze to select those activities?
Yes. Yep.
Cool.
Yeah. So it's been really neat to see the progress he's made over the last few years. So.
And then, excuse me, and Dave, it's been mainly over distance learning. So with his PCA, but we did borrow a switch, Julie, from your library to get started. And then with the switch, he activates the switch with his head, and then that turns a fan on or a hair dryer, which blows a light ball so he can play catch. And we're hoping to be able to bring that into school when he comes to school, so that he'll activate a floor fan, and then he can blow the ball for like kickball, be the pitcher. And there's just a lot of different things he'll be able to do. But and then with his eye gaze, he's been able to communicate like what do you want to play. And we have like bowling or, with ramps and different things. And but he's really able to say when he wants to stop or when he wants to play, if he wants to play more. And it's just opened up the world of physical activity and play for him. So back and forth with others.
Very cool. Thank you. Are we ready for the next one? Do you have a question, Shannon?
Yeah, I was just curious. On your team member list, it said you have a communication device specialist. Who is that person, and how did you get them involved with the team?
That's
Rihanna.
I think my position has existed this is my third year doing it. But basically we started this program kind of from ground up and have, I guess, what was your question again?
So I can kind of answer that, I think, for you, Annette. So we recognized a need to have somebody who could, other than the speech pathologists, who would be able to actually go into the classrooms with students, make sure that they're everything that's on their device is appropriate for them and what they needed to be able to participate, who made sure that the devices were being updated and that we had things on there that they needed from home, like, kind of all that coordination that just isn't always time for, and has really helped to make sure Rihanna's made sure the students in the classrooms know how to communicate with the kids, as well as the kids with the devices know how to use them. So it's been a really cool addition. And Rihanna, you started as a paraprofessional, right? And then, but you're going to school for speech?
Yes. Yep.
And so she has some extra training.
It's been
That's awesome. Thank you.
Opportunity.
Mm-hmm. So the next area is that assertiveness skills in AAC, and that was you, Annette. Go ahead.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Annette Walsh, and I'm a school social worker at North Star Academy. And I work with a second grader who is in one of our DCD programs. And we've been working on assertiveness skills. And the way that we have done that is through a concept called Brave Talk. And it just really includes being able to make sure that we're sitting up, shoulders back, using a voice that's, louder than talking, not shouting and screaming, but really a way for him to be able to ask for what he wants and needs. And so he's got the device to be able to assist him in doing that. So when, he may try to communicate that verbally, but when he can't, or he notices that maybe the other person isn't understanding him enough, then we can either prompt him or he will independently go to his device. And Rihanna spent some time with us in one of our sessions going through this, so that I had a visual that I had set up for him already for the skill steps to do this. And then she was able to come and meet with us, and he could talk through it either, with me or the prompts that he already had on his device, just to tell us what he wanted. So he asked for this to be on his device. I was so proud of him, because we just, he's been practicing this with the visuals, but then to ask for it to be on his device was just one more step in his level of independence. So I just shout out for that. So Rihanna came, and we looked at the device, and we looked at the skill steps and which parts were important to him that he thought would be helpful and meaningful. And she was able to take some pictures of the visuals that he already was learning and put those onto the device. And so he did have some of the steps like in another part of the device too, but he wanted it all to be in one section under Brave Talk. So it was easy for him just to go to that application and be able to use the prompts there. Rihanna, did you have anything you want to add to that? Or
Yeah, I just wanted to add too that how cool it was for him to ask us for what he wanted, and then being able to go and work with him and you, Annette, and plan what he is Brave Talk to him, giving him the power to share what he wants. And since then, he has asked for other things on the Brave Talk page too. So it's just going to keep building and continuing from there. It's really cool.
It's been really exciting. It's great having Rihanna there to help us with the whole process and be able to help that change happen. Yeah.
Awesome. Great. Any questions on this one? All right. We will move on to me. I'm Krista Sievertson. I am the autism specialist for the Duluth Edison Charter Schools. And I had a middle school art teacher reach out to me with some concerns about a student who was having a hard time with an assignment where they needed to sculpt a bowl from clay and add textures and glaze it. And he was having sensory aversions not only to the clay itself and the texture of the clay, but also the art room and being in that kind of loud, unstructured art environment where all the kids are, working on their projects independently. And so I checked with the student. We talked about using some different art mediums, which were also not something that he wanted to do. So instead, we came up with a solution to create a digital bowl using an online program called Tinkercad. And we chose Tinkercad because it was one that his home-based teacher was familiar with. He happens to have a home-based teacher who's really into making models and 3D printing. And so kind of emailing back and forth between the art teacher, his home-based teacher, and then we also ended up pulling in the technology integration specialist because once the bowl was made online, then he would be able to help him to digitally print, to 3D print it. And then we also work together with the direct study. We have a direct study classroom, like a study hall kind of period in middle school, and where there's a paraprofessional and a teacher, and just touch base with them about a space for him to work on this that was outside of that kind of noisy art environment. Since he was going to be on a computer anyway, didn't need to necessarily be, we could help him with that sensory piece as well. So What I did was to kind of help keep it organized, and so started out by making just a visual checklist that I have here on the slide, just with kind of his steps. I was able to find a video of somebody making a basic bowl in Tinkercad, which was amazing. So then he was able to kind of go through those first 2 steps, at least independently. And then I did find, if anybody is interested in using this, there was a more kind of sculpture-y type option as far as another program that you can add even more detail and make it look a little bit more handmade, or a little less kind of computer graphic. I don't know what the right terminology is, but it looked a little more artsy if you use this ZBrush Core program. But we decided to go with the one that we already had staff that were familiar with how to use it with the Tinkercad. And I will share how it all turned out next week in our in our session about assistive technology and collaboration, with some kind of struggles and kind of how we overcame our obstacles with this, because there were a lot of people involved, and kind of a lot going on with the technology pieces. So but this is what our solution was, to kind of work together, and it was a lot of people that we were pulling together to try to get this one project done. All right. Any questions about that? Otherwise, we can move on to communication and DAPE with Anne.
All right, thank you. I'm Anne
Andrew.
Dolan, the DAPE teacher, and Rihanna and I have worked together with quite a few students, but this year, student in particular, in grade 4 with DCD, mild, moderate, and SLI needs. So the gym, of course, is always a big environment for students, and the student was going to participate in general ed PE and in DAPE class. So what Rihanna did was came into the general PE class and showed the students the device, and just explained to students about how, and she can say, what she presented, but it was really helpful to just normalize and familiarize the students. And with all the students that Rihanna's come in and helped, it's just been so nice as a DAPE teacher, because I'm able to teach, and then Rihanna works with the students and their devices. And we always start DAPE class out like with warm-ups. And so Rihanna's working with the student that's going to lead the class. The kids lead the warm-up, and she works with the students so they can count the sit-ups or whatever they're leading and on their device. And it's really reduced behavior, and it's increased their ability to know the rules and to be able to communicate with classmates. And it's really been a great partnership. So Rihanna?
Thank you, Anne. I agree. It has been a great partnership, and getting to really focus on the needs of the student in different areas in DAPE, in the classroom. So yeah, I guess I could show you a little bit of his page if we have time.
And I do have on the next slide, there are a couple visuals that you had shared with me as well.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Yeah, we can go through with that. So the slide on the left were those warm-ups that Anne had mentioned. So getting to choose what warm-up we're going to do. And then from there, the activities are on the right. And we started out with just requesting what activity the student wanted to do. And then from there, Anne and I have tried to add in more communication opportunities. Like if you can see, the student really liked the "I am good at this" comment. And then on each one of these activities, there's a little arrow in the top right-hand corner. And that opens another page for the activity that has phrases like "pass the ball," comments, questions, adding more opportunity for communication in the activity.
Very cool. All right. I think our last one is Janelle.
Hi, I'm Janelle Janisich. I'm a special education teacher in a K through 2 building in Hibbing. But when I had this positive collaboration experience, I was a physical health disabilities teacher. So this is kind of simple, but it was just a fun collaboration because family was so on board with this. So the student was a kindergartner. She had a traumatic brain injury, physical impairment, and visually impaired. She's also nonverbal. She used a wheelchair and she had a tray on her wheelchair. So we were in the middle of her evaluation. And when I spoke with mom and did an interview with her about, some like all the set pieces, she really wanted her daughter to have something that she could do that brought her joy. And she also mentioned at one of her doctor's appointments that they recommended like a sun lamp because she really seems to kind of seem depressed during the winter months and just, she can't get outside a lot and get in those rays. So she wanted us to explore a sun lamp. And the teacher, the blind and visually impaired, and I were also working on, she loves music. So we were trying to, coordinate like switches and devices to try and get her to turn on. Like we have a cool thing at our lending library too, the music. Krista, what is it called?
Is the MP3 player?
Yeah, the MP3 player. Yeah. So we were kind of working with that. And then we were just getting way too into things. So we just took a step back. We're like, oh, let's kind of go simple with this. Her mom would like her to have a sunlight. We want her to be able to control something that brings her joy in her environment. So we used AbleNet's PowerLink, and we explored a jelly bean switch, which is the red little one there. And we had a nice tall light that went to it was a floor lamp, and it came up and was very close to her. And she always would tilt her head and look for what she could see. And we kind of played around with placement of the jelly bean switch, and she was able to bring her hand over and hit it and turn on the light. And when she turned on the light, you guys, her face just lit up. I mean, she turned her head and she just looked at that light, and she would make some sounds that we know indicate joy for her. And then, we messed with the settings, so it would shut off right away. And then she'd stop and she'd look and she'd start, feeling around for where the switch was. She'd hit it. And again, she'd turn and just get the biggest sense of joy. We were fortunate where her mom was really tapped in with a waiver. And so, we brought her in 'cause she's a very involved parent too. And we showed her how her daughter did this at school. So we were able to get the information to her on the equipment that we used. And mom purchased this and put a nice big lamp by her bed in her room. So and the switch close by too. So she was able to, in her room, turn on the lamp by herself and experience that same joy. So it's just just like this because it was one of those simple collaborations between home and school where we were able to pull mom in. Her daughter was able to show off with what she could do on her own. So, and it didn't require a lot of training. Like she came in one time, we made a video so she could kind of see the steps when she was home. And also just had the video so she could see her daughter doing it at school too. And beyond that, it was kind of good to go. So, yeah.
Janelle?
Yeah.
I just have a comment, and that brings tears to my eyes to hear that. I think so much we just overthink things and think that things have to be big and elaborate or more than what someone really needs. And that just really helps us to think, let's just think really concretely and functionally. And it just seems simple, but it's so big for that particular child.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. I know it was just, wait, let's step back. 'Cause I get tied into that too. Like, well, it's got to make it grand. We have to have all these things. And like, really, it was the light, and she loves it. And yeah. That's all. Anybody have any questions about that piece? No? All right.
Turn my mic off. What does the power link do with the switch? How does that work together?
Okay, thank you. What a great question, Krista. So the switch plugs into the power link, and the plug-in for the light plugs into the power link, and then all plugs in. So the power link has a timer. If you hit it, it kind of works as that. I'm not explaining it very well. I'm kind of panicking about my group of students that might walk in the room at any moment. But yeah, so it's kind of like a little electrical box almost that the switch intervenes with. Instead of a light switch, the switch does the turning off and on. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you can plug in other things like,
it's the thing that makes the switch work with just a standard thing you can buy at the store.
Thank you. Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then it also has other options like timers on it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, which was the big buy-in for her, because we could put the timer on, and when it would shut off, then she would be motivated to press the switch to turn it on again. So we started with, really short time, so we could increase her motor memory too of where the switch was. So she'd have to continuously hit the switch in the same spot. And then we could reduce the time so that she would have a longer time with the light once she got to memorize where the placement of the switch was.
Super cool.
Thanks.
Beautiful. And we have one of those in our Region 3 AT lending library.
And the jelly bean switches too.
Yep. Yeah. Good.
One of my favorite simple things to do, and I learned it a very long time ago from a special ed teacher. And I know it's a little tricky now with everything, but she would always do an in-service on some students with special needs who were very involved. And it was always a smoothie in service, or, a malt or something like that. So she did the whole plug the blender in to the power link, have a switch so the student could make smoothies for their friends. So that was always a really cool way to get kids involved with their peers too.
Nice.
Great. Well, I feel like these were some really beautiful stories of collaboration and really big impacts for students because of the collaboration that's happening between all of the team members, and, of course, including the parents and the families and the students in those choices. And so these are some really great stories. Of course, we can open it up for questions and answers. I'll stop sharing the slideshow here. Feel free to unmute yourselves and ask any questions, make any comments, or type something in the chat window too. I can facilitate that. And I'll go ahead and stop recording, but huge thanks to everyone who shared these stories today. I really, really appreciate it. And I think these are some real positive collaboration stories that hopefully will help inspire other people doing similar work around the region. So thanks.
Yes, definitely.